magtulungan kahit anong pandemya, bagyo, anong pagsubok, tayo po ay makakabangon. At ang pagiging bayani natin ng mga Pilipino, hindi lamang tayo ay mag-voice ng ating buhay. Tumulong po tayo makabangon ng ating ekonomiya para tayo po ay consider na rin na mga bayani. Tayo rin po ay nananawagan sa ating mga kababayan at suportahan natin itong mga kababayan natin, itong mga MSCP natin na nandito. Maraming salamat po at isang magandang umaga po muli sa lahat.
Alright, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Welcome back and muli ako po si Grace Gayoso, ang inyong host for today. And just a few reminders, no? I would like to invite you to go to the virtual booths ng ating mga local entrepreneurs. Ayan, you just need to go to the website, no? virtualnationaltradefair.gov.dti.ph. And then you just need to register to get your free access pass. Ayan, yan. All right, no? You can see it on the screen, virtualnationaltradefair.dti.gov.ph, you know, to be able to register and get a free access pass para you can visit the virtual booths. And also, for those asking kung saan available yung recording, you can check out sa Facebook page ng Virtual National Trade Fair, and available po yung mga recordings from day 1 to day 3. Ayan. Then right now, it's time to pick the lucky winner. Yan, through our spin a wheel. Sino ngayon ang makakakuha? Yan, ng ating mabibigyan ng special gift box. Ayan, no? Nakita nyo sa inyong mga screens? Everything with items from Coco Plus Aquarian Development Corporation, Hineleban Foundation Incorporated, and Everything Green PH. Yan, nakikita nyo, no? Napakaganda ng ating gift box, and all of that you'll be able to get. As long as you are here right now in the Zoom link, in the Zoom meeting, pwede kayong manalo. Ayan, diba? So, ngayon, let's do our e-roleta. Ready na ba ang ating, ayan na. Okay, so let's do the spin. Nag-spin na ba? Ayan, umiikot na ang ating roleta. Ayan, sino kaya ang mananalo for today ng ating special gift box? Ayun, si Miss Jaira Zel Advincula. Jaira, I hope you are there right now. Ayan, Jaira Zel Advincula, congratulations. Our event coordinator will contact you so you would know how you will get your special gift box. And don't worry dun sa iba, no? Later, we will still have more, one more gift box na pwede ninyong mapanalunan. Ayan. All right. So, good afternoon again. And ngayon, no, our next speaker will share everything about food. So, lahat ng mga into food business dyan or planning to go into food, I think this topic is for you, all right? So, everything about food, like labeling requirements in major countries, food safety. She'll be talking also about shelf life, food processing, and compliance with government standards. Please welcome from ECOLAB USA, the resource person from the Philippine Trade Training Center, Ms. Rosemarie Tingzon-Kwan.
Good afternoon to all, and it's good to see that we have this virtual conference for discussion on processed food. So as introduced or as mentioned by Grace, thank you Grace for the introduction, we shall be talking a lot about being a food business operator. and the topics are actually diverse. And that's why we'll have to make use of this time to discuss these different topics about processed food, trade, and the impact on our business of compliances in effect. Uh, there's a reason why I have to use this red color for my first slide because it's 1:30 in the afternoon. In trainings, we normally call this oras de peligro. So just to wake you up a little bit, because if we run down the topics, you will see the so many items or topics to be discussed under this um, umbrella label, which is exporting processed food products, an overview of food labeling, product development, FDA regulations, and food safety standards. So what are these topics to be discussed until for the next 1.5 hours? First is the international food labeling requirements of major importing countries. This is more focused on the labeling guides of identified countries that you will find out later in the program. Next is practical and innovative tips on food safety, shelf life, food processing, technology and innovation, basic labeling requirements, and process and product assessment. The last is about awareness on the regulatory compliance of food, um, such as the Food and Drug Administration's license to operate and certificate of product registration, halal and international food standards. So for this session, definitely we know that this is an overview with the relevant topics for discussion. And with this overview, I should say that as food business operators, this presentation would give us better understanding, or we will begin to understand the different requirements when it comes to processed food and being a player, a key player in trade of processed food. And then from what we will gather from this session, that may give you an idea where you plan to go. Where would your product have more potential on, which will now help you plan and act. Of course, there are other information already available to you. And so this is just for us to take a look in this session, the different aspects in trade of processed food that would be welcome information to us. So let us begin with the first topic, which is international food labeling requirements of major importing countries, wherein our focus would be the following countries: USA, United Arab Emirates or UAE, government of Japan, and the government of China. Looking at the statistics that we have now, currently, with even after the pandemic, for processed food, our leading trade partner is the United States of America. Leading partner where we export largely huge volume of different Philippine food to the USA. So looking at the labeling guide, of the USFDA, these are governed by several rules. Of course, there's the US Food and Drug Administration, which is responsible for assuring that foods sold in the United States are safe, wholesome, and properly labeled. So this includes both domestic and exported food items. We are not in any way uh, being we, as an exporting country, the Philippines has to comply with the requirements implemented or being imposed by the USFDA. We also know very well that there is the Food Safety Modernization Act, di ba? Yung FSMA. Actually, they started on this in 2010, and then from 2011, they started the several phases of implementation, may mga deadlines, no, that we have to comply with if we are actively exporting to the US, or if we have plans of of exploring the US as our market for our processed food. So if you look at the relevant laws, now we begin with the so many guidelines, no? Brace yourself, kasi all of these discussions will be based on regulations, will be based on reliable websites, and mostly technical and of course science-based, no? So we have here the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And through time, there were amendments done to tackle about nutrition labeling under the Nutrition Labeling Education Act. And then of course the allergen. And this is governed by the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. They also have their, you might be encountering the CFR, or the Code of Food of Federal Regulations. It's like, ito yung pinaka-manual, no, ng USFDA. Before, printed lang yan. But now, there is already the electronic version. So it's easily accessible, no, when you access it in the internet. There you can see the food labeling updates and also more updates on the food safety-based, you know, food safety-based regulations of the US market. So if we look at the labeling, a package will have a principal display panel and an information panel. And for the principal display panel, you can see that this is the main panel. And if you look at the sample, this is where you normally have the product name and the net weight and the other requirements like net quantity and statement. And there is the information display panel to the right side of the principal display panel of a packaged food. So if you look at the principal display panel, that is the panel that is facing the consumer. So whenever you're in the supermarket, that is the panel that you see that would introduce, where the product gets introduced to you. So mainly, it's there, the identity of per name of food is there, and the net quantity. Then, in the information panel, which is normally to the right side of the PDP, you have there the information about the manufacturer, the ingredient list, in descending order of predominance. You see there the nutrition labeling and any required allergy labeling. Now, one important consideration is about the type size. It should be a minimum of 1/16 of an inch for that to be clear and easy to read. This minimum is based on the small letter O. 1/16 of an inch minimum based on the small letter O. So when you say type font, it is very particular also that the font to be used has to be clear and easy to read. So what about aesthetics? What about design? USFDA says that we cannot crowd the regulations requirements for labeling with artwork, which is not required in mandatory labeling. So therefore, there has to be a balance between the aesthetics and the mandatory. It is important that we know how to properly design our label because of course, when we, in the marketing side, the attractiveness of the label is a major factor for one's decision to purchase the product. But that is just half of the decision making. Consumers now do read the labels. So therefore, for the US market, it is important that the mandatory requirements are met, in fact, primarily. And then the aesthetic design cannot clutter or any other information. They cannot clutter the label so that yung focus kasi sa mandatories becomes obscured. Okay. So, paano tayo, no, sa ating products? Ang sabi kasi ng USFDA, when you identify the food, there has to be a common name. Common name from their side of consumers, no? They can easily understand, like apple juice, no? pineapple juice or cereals. What if tayo, no? We have products that we export to the US, and of course, ang una nating market would be the Filipinos. How do we do that? So there is the description part. So that's why here you can see it's polvoron. But there is the English description, which is powdered milk candies. So kahit sa port of entry yan, pag nakita ng US FDA inspectors, it already becomes, they already have a good idea because of the description. And this variant, crisp rice, is included to differentiate this product from all these other variants, no? So that is an example of how we can have our products get accepted using the identity by way of giving the description if their common name is not common in the market destination. Take a look at this, no? The product is actually laing. O, alam naman natin lahat yan. Alam din yan ng lahat ng mga Pilipino sa Amerika. But at port of entry, wala naman ng mga consumers natin doon, no? Nandun pa rin ang regulatory, US FDA. So ano ang descriptive? So what is the descriptive term for this? So they call it taro leaves in coconut cream. May variant din with tuna flakes. Okay? So the description plays a very important role, a significant role when it comes to labeling. Okay? Challenge ngayon sa atin yan. Kasi alam naman natin na meron tayong mga products here in the country na hinahanap ng mga kababayan natin sa Amerika. So kung meron tayong mga products na mas alam natin sa common name natin, at we will try to communicate that using a description that will be understandable at the port of entry by the regulators. So another example is, ito naman, ano? Kung titingnan mo itong corn snack na to, multilingual. Diba? Iba't iba yung mga languages na makikita natin. But there is compliance with the US FDA requirements. And yung kanyang, yung kanyang information display panel, the required nutrition labeling is there. And we just have to notice, tingnan niyo yung nutrition labeling niya at this point, no? For the additional nutrients, you can see their vitamins A and C, di ba? Now, may changes na rin yan. Ngayon, kung meron pang mga labels na ganito, it would require some negotiation with US FDA, especially if the items are already in the US, or kung may inventaryo pa dito, if there is a way to negotiate for the labels to be exhausted dahil may mga changes na. The good thing here is may deadlines naman, no? So if at all merong inventory of so many labels na ganito pa, there's still time to dispose of this, to use this in the finished products until they get into the new label requirement. When we talk about allergens, using the Food Allergen Labeling Consumer Protection Act law, the US has identified 8 allergens. We are all familiar with this kasi yung atin din dito, no, marami tayong nakikitang products na sa atin na making use of allergen labeling as required by our FDA, our own Philippine FDA. So these have to be stated. If you have ingredients that would have any of these allergens, then you have to declare that in your label. So for example, for this tuna product, so makikita ninyo yung label contains tuna as fish, soy, and wheat. But take note, if it's a fish ingredient, you have to identify the kind of fish. Kaya dito may tuna. No? May tuna. You cannot put there contains fish only. That will become a misdeclaration, and you will be your attention will be called on it. So identify the kind of fish that is in your product. Okay. Now, I mentioned about the new requirement for labeling being that US FDA has already announced. So you'll notice from the previous example of the corn snack, the nutrients at the lower part of the ingredient of the nutrition facts table has vitamin A and C. Now, it's vitamin D, calcium, and potassium. Okay, that has been added now. So this is the new label that has been announced by US FDA. Now, why are they going into updating their labels and all? Because they have already studied how the nutrition facts can be interpreted, how well nutrition facts can be interpreted from the consumer point of view. And this new label that they have designed would address the health and nutrition requirements of the consumers, as well as it would give emphasis on how correct the label, especially the nutritional components, are interpreted in a label. So there are changes now. So let us look what are these changes. First, the serving size is now in a larger, bolder type. Take a look at this. Initially, noon, pag sinasabing serving size update noon, you just put the weight, like 55 grams. Pero now, nilagyan lang medyo qualitative. Kasi for example, kung wala ka namang weighing scale sa inyo, how do you interpret 55 grams? So, may parang visualization na. So, this is 2/3 of a cup. And then the amount of calories is in bigger form para nasa eye level kaagad ng attention kaagad ng consumer. And there are daily values updated. So ano naman ang difference na nangyari dito? If you will notice, backtrack tayo a bit doon sa sample, that I showed about the product. Kung titingnan natin to, take a look at the under total carbohydrates. There's the dietary fiber, and then there's sugar. Okay, tingnan natin yung bago. Sa bago, there is still dietary fiber. You put sugars as total, but there has to be a declaration on the added sugars. Why? Marami kasi mga food items na naturally may sariling sugars. So, pag sinabi mong total sugars, pag mataas, sometimes merong consumers who will not consume it anymore, who don't like such, kung talaga inherent siya. On the downside naman nun, marami ding products na marami naman talagang added sugar, hindi lang identify. Alin dito ang talagang sugar ng raw material ko? At ilan ang idinagdag ko. So, very important na malaman kung ano yung how much is the added sugar. This is a decision point for the consumer. So, meaning pag may added sugar, titingnan sa ingredient list, ay, refined sugar ito pala. Or there's brown sugar. There's washed sugar added. Or there's sweetener added. So, the information is now seen in this labeling. There are also change in some nutrients. And if you look at the nutrients, even yung amount naka-declare. For example, vitamin D, 2 micrograms. Before, percentage lang na nakasulat. So, ang interpretation nila dito, at least you'd know kung ilan yung intake mo. And if it says here na 10% lang ang na-contribute ng kinakain mo na yan, and if you really need to fulfill the requirement for vitamin D in your daily diet, so you will now have to opt for other products items, so that you can be so that you would be able to meet yung vitamin D requirement mo pag talagang kailangan mo siyang i-fulfill for the day. So, yan ang mga changes. And there is also a new footnote in the daily value, which is about just explains that the daily value tells you how much a nutrient is in a serving of food. So, itong changes na to, according to US FDA, will make the consumer more accurately informed about what they eat. Okay? So, yun ang nangyayari sa labeling ng US. Now, we go to the UAE, no? Philippines to the United Arab Emirates, or ang pinaka-ano naman natin dyan is yung Dubai, no? Okay. So, for the United Arab Emirates, there are some markings, and the standard used is labeling of prepackaged foodstuffs, which has replaced another labeling guidelines in the past. So for the UAE, this standard has been approved and published as a technical regulation, and this is mandatory. Okay. Within the Dubai Municipality Organization, we have the Food Safety Department, which is divided into different departments. And there is the Food Trade Control, which handles the different products, approval of labels that are being that are entering the UAE market. So the Food Trade Control section would be responsible for the following, no? So they verify the compliance of imported foodstuffs through physical inspection, labeling, and sampling for lab tests. So with that, a prior requirement before you export processed food is for your labels to be assessed and registered through the online system of the Food Trade Control section, which they call FIRS, or Food Import and Re-Export System. So this is an online registration of your labels. And the required information in the label, the brand, the product name. And the ingredient list, again, in descending order. And if you have additives in your processed food item, mention, write the name of the additive plus the E number. Now, the E number can be also accessed through different reliable websites. I placed here the one from food.gov.uk, where you will have the different E numbers of the various food additives, either as acidulant, for microbial control, emulsifier, food colors, you have there. Then you must have the production and expiry dates, manufacturer's name details, including the distributor and importer. The net weight has to be in metric units, the country of origin, warning if any, method of preparation if any, and nutritional facts. Now, for those that make use of, for those that would declare that they have oils or fats as ingredients, then that must be declared clearly. Is it coconut oil? Is it sunflower oil? And then there must be lot identification and lot number. So here is an example of a product wherein the labeling requirements are demonstrated. And the products should be first registered via FIRS through the label. Okay. Another mandatory requirement is the Arabic translation. So the Arabic translation has to be present in all labels being exported to UAE. Stickers are accepted, but it cannot cover all the other mandatories. That it must be placed properly in the product. Production and expiry dates must be printed. Hindi pwedeng naka-sticker ang expiry dates, no? Production date. So that's why for those who are already exporting to the Middle East, they are equipped with the inkjet labeling machine so that the expiry dates and production dates are directly printed on the original label for the product. Now, this being the Middle East market, especially part of the Middle East market, packaging design and development must consider cultural norms. So this is more, this giving emphasis more on how aesthetics have to be done, design, no? We must be, uh, we must pay respects to the cultural norms of this market, the Middle East market. There is some conservativeness there, and this should be taken into account when we design our product label or packaging. Animal fats and ingredients should be sourced from animals that were halal slaughtered. So here, another particular feature when it comes to exporting to the Middle East, such as the UAE, would be about the use of fats or animal fats and ingredients that are halal slaughtered. If there are label claims or that is in your label, claims that have the logo or a statement in your label, then the certification or certificates have to be provided. So that is also inputted in the system, yung first na system. Now, what about pork fat or other pork-related ingredients? These are basically prohibited. But you know that there are stores that are where pork products are put in retail. So these products are retailed with all pork and non-Muslim products in designated restricted sections of the retail stores. Very strict sila dyan. Because even the handlers have to be identified. They have to be designated people to handle pork and non-Muslim products. If this is not followed, chances are para sa mindset ng ating consumers dito, may contamination sa kanilang sabihin nating halal products in the retail setting or in the retail store. Even the warehouse of these products have to be identified, have to have a permit, and there has to be physical separation from the halal products. So these sections are clearly marked for non-Muslims. And labels must comply with the general requirements. Wala pa rin ano yun, wala pa rin kaibahan doon. You have to comply with the labeling requirements of the municipality, and you must clearly state that the product contains pork. Okay? So, my window to sell pork products, but there is strict compliance requirements that you have to understand. So, it is important that your importer will also be cooperating with you, or your exporter consolidator if you are exporting your products indirectly through an exporter consolidator. There must be a clear communication there on how you're going to prepare for export of your products should they contain pork to the Middle East. So to facilitate product entry, the Philippine suppliers are strongly encouraged to obtain advance label approval. You do not wish for your shipment to be held at the port. Mortgage is so expensive there. More so, disposal of products that are not compliant. So you have to, if there is some interest for your product, again, cooperate with the person who is interested in distributing your product to the country or to this market, and get to know more about the regulations, because there should be an advanced label approval through the local importers or consolidators. So particularly if your products are new to the market. So this label clearance approval can be obtained through the Dubai municipality website. So if you are to register items, you have to register them individually. So even if it's a single product with different SKUs. So kung 100 grams, may 200 ka, may 500 register them individually because the labels are going to be assessed individually as well. And you have to register with first, as we said, Food Import and Re-Export System through the Dubai Municipality website. And then your important company could register that for you. And your registration has to be before shipment arrives in the UAE. So to further qualify this, if you think that you have several products to register, make sure that even before the shipment leaves the Philippines, or there is still in the process of negotiation, you are able to register your products with peers. You need enough time to be able to prepare and be ready, because your objective, of course, is for your products to be 100% accepted at the port of entry. Okay, so that's for UAE, no? Now, what about the Japanese market, no? Let's say we look at the Japanese market. So, if it makita mo talaga no heavily Japanese characters. Pero mabuti na lang, 'di ba? We have this app in our smartphone with translations. In fact, most of our recent business or tourism travels, very useful yung app na yan. No, but let's say, no, dito tayo sa regulations. So if we look at this label, this is actually a label for a product produced within Japan. So this is barley tea, and it contains 20. There are 20 tea bags there. The ingredients are listed. So tingnan niyo yung number 3. Ingredients, barley, nakalagay yung origin. Country of origin, rice, coming from Thailand. Millet, coming from Japan. So even from Japan. So nakikita natin yung iba, yung mga differences when it comes to ingredient declaration. Okay. So net weight, of course, nakikita natin halos familiar, or we were doing this as well. Best when used, see date on bottom of the box. So ito may ano siya, meron siyang guide, no? So yung number 5 is here. Siyempre, for those who cannot read the Japanese language, so we rely on this English translation. Storage, keeping it dry in a cool, dry place. Ito yun, no? And then manufacturer, producer, it's E2N. E2N is one of the well-known manufacturers of food products in Japan. And then there are tips for consumption: use after opening or refrigerate prepared tea. And then when you refrigerate and when you use that tea, best consumed within 1 day. So yun yung kanilang mga tips, no? Now there's another label example. Again, this is made domestically, where you can see that you have the name, ingredients, the quantity, best eaten, storage, country of origin, and then ito naman, importing country pala, no? So we have a local distributor, and then we have an importer for this. So again, ito yung kanyang labeling, no, for this. So tingnan natin ano ba yung nag-govern sa laws naman in Japan. Alam niyo, for the longest time, we've been using the Japan Food Sanitation Law. When we were trying to understand yung mga sa ating mga exporters to the Japanese market, ang basis namin noon is Japan Food Sanitation Law and JAS, Japan Agricultural Standards Law. So in 2015, they merged this, they harmonized. And they came up with 3 categories: fresh food, processed foods, and food additives. In terms of the Philippines, malaki ang trade kasi natin sa Japan for fresh. Di ba tayo nga, number 1, one of the leading exporters of fresh mango to Japan, bananas, no? So that's why nagmamatter sa atin yung regulations nila on fresh food and processed food. So not so much on food additives. Pero ito, makikita nyo may sarili silang regulation on food additives because they import food additives per se, and they also make food additives per se, no? So if you look at this, it technically covers all food and drinks sold in Japan, including food additives like vanilla. So from 2015, their implementation date was 5 years, no, for all processed products and 1.5 years for fresh food. Kaya kung titingnan natin yung trending ng ng mga labeling improvements, guidelines, it's like, the US FDA spearheaded this in 2010. And then makikita natin yung mga changes in the next recent years. Nandun na rin yung mga ibang countries, no? They also updated the requirements, including the Philippines. Meron din tayo. So when we look at the food labeling for Japan, so pareho din mga the identities, name, product, list of ingredients in descending order, list of food additives, the origin of ingredients. So yun yung makikita natin, may there's something different here, no, that they're doing. They wanted to see the origin of ingredients, then best before or used by when it comes to the expiry nila, storage instructions, ganun din, manufacturer's information, allergen information. This is also interesting. You would see how different they tackle yung allergen information, the country of origin, as the last item, no? They have a different approach about manufacturers. Para sa kanila, if you have a product, but actually this is more for those who are into more of their domestic players. But it also would be good for us to understand why this regulation for domestic players. They have assigned manufacturer ID codes. This is applicable if you have a product wherein which you are manufacturing in 2 or more food facilities. So they need to see the ID code. This is part of their traceability. Else, yung label mo must contain the name and address of both the manufacturer and the distributor. So pag lumampas na sa isang planta ang pinagagawan mo ng isang product that you are selling sa retail, kailangan mo ng ID code. Yung ID code na yon, pag in-access mo naman, yung code na yan, kinuha mo naman sa internet, sa kanilang secure na website, you will see there the customer service contact information, the company's website address, and then the names and addresses for all the production facilities. So, most likely, because kung dalawa nga naman planta, pinanggagalingan or more of a certain product, and the label is so space challenged dahil marami ng mga inputs kang na mandatory, no? So, they came up with an ID code. Yet that can be accessed and you can get or scan, then you can get all the information from there. So, yun naman ang in-implement ng Japan. Now, this is what is interesting about their allergen. Kung mapapansin ninyo, ang mandatory, shrimp, crab, wheat, buckwheat. Ano ba yung buckwheat na yan? Yan yung soba nila. Yung popular na soba noodles nila. Because for them, because studies show that this is more, this is a healthy version of noodles. Egg, dairy products, and peanuts. Tingnan nyo yung recommended. Madami silang na-identify na allergen na recommended to be put in the label. Almond, abalone, squid, salmon roe, orange, cashew nut. Peanut ang nandoon sa mandatory, pero yung ibang nuts nandito sa recommended. Kung titingnan mo sa US labeling, peanuts and tree nuts, lahat na sa listahan ng may mandatory declaration. Sa Japan, peanuts ang mandatory, pero yung tree nuts, recommended lang. Ano yung tree nuts dito? Tingnan natin. Almond, we have cashew nut, we have walnut. So far, yun lang nakita ko dito, no? In fact, meron tayong kung titingnan natin, pili, Philippine nut yun. Easily, in-identify na natin yan as one of the allergens kasi tree na. No? Kaya pagka sa US labeling, pili is allergen. Pero kung tree nut dito, wala naman siyang so recommended lang. No? So meron dito. And of course, all the others na kasama dito, sesame, salmon, mackerel. Mackerel, sa fish yan, no? Soybean, chicken, banana, pork, matsutake, mushroom, peach, yam, apple, and gelatin. So this recommendation of Japan is also backed by their own study. Kasi for them, these are most of the products that are known to cause allergy when consumed. No? These are food allergens. They also have a different take when it comes to allergen labeling sa packaging. They prefer that the labeling, the listing of allergens are done individually per ingredient. Kaya tingnan niyo itong first example. Ham, including egg and pork. Mayonnaise, including egg and soybean. H, hydrolyzed protein. So individually. Although sabi naman nila, okay, pwede rin naman tong collectively. So ito na sana, no? Ito na yung isang format. Nakalagay, nakalump na together at the end of the ingredients ang allergens. However, kung titingnan mo naman tong clause na to ng mga according to the law, as a general rule, allergens must be listed individually. So they may be listed, collectively on an exceptional basis. Eh di susundin na lang natin yung general recommendation. So yon. Okay. Again, kung titingnan natin, yung allergen, at least naman naka-English dito. Pinapakita nila ito yung mga allergens present in the food, no? So there is a milk allergy warning, pero mas maganda na example na pangalawa kasi there is the English translation. Okay. When it comes to nutrition labeling naman for Japan, mandatory are this: energy, protein, fat, carbohydrate, sodium, or there is a salt equivalent. Recommended saturated fat, dietary fiber, that's voluntary but recommended. And then the other one is voluntary, you know. So kung gusto mo, kasi if you have a product that have essential fatty acids, ito yun N3 fatty acid, N6 fatty acid. These are like the omega. These are the omega fatty acids na nakita sa fish, or the DHA, which are good for in maximizing the functions of the retina in the brain. Ang DHA kasi, for so many years ago, talagang it's one of the studies that Japan spearheaded as good for to be good as a part of infant milk, kasi yung development of the brain and the retina is one of the major functions of this. So it's voluntary yung no? Yung statement mo na yan. Serving size. They would say 100 grams and 100 ml. Buti na lang, oh, ngayon, meron na sila sinasabing, okay, ano yung reasonable serving size nyo, pwede mong gawin. Because in the past, you know, we have to move to 100 grams. Gawa ka ulit. Nutrition table mo, 100 grams. But now, they have opened, no, to using kung ano yung reasonable serving size ng importing ng country, no, ng importing country. So in these labeling standards, we also have the health and nutrition part, no. So kung if we divide that, we have processed foods, we have foods with health claims, we have foods for special dietary uses. So ang labeling yan may different regulations. So for example, for processed food, nutrient declaration as I showed in the previous slide. But for those with health claims, those with special dietary uses, you have to substantiate the function claims and the special uses. So there are, that is governed by other clauses in this labeling standard. Alcoholic beverages are not actually mentioned because they are regulated under the National Tax Agency. It is an act concerns liquor business associations and measures for securing revenue for liquor tax. So may tax related or relevant na concern pagdating sa alcohol. Now, ito na yon, appropriate Japanese language labeling is only required by the time the product reaches retail shelves. So ito, this is now in proper coordination with your importing Japanese company. So meron niyang agreement kung ano yung Japanese translation. Because take note, dalawa na yung napag-usapan natin na may translation. So therefore, this is the best practice because we do not wish to have our products wrongly translated. There were already instances in the late past, some years ago, wherein there were wrong translations of the label because of lack of, due diligence. Ang importante lang naman dito, you know who your buyers are, your client will help you. So ganun din sa Japan. It is, we do have some reliable translation companies here in the Philippines that we have been using in the past with different clients. However, as best practice, we consult. We consult the buyer, the client to help us out in this. In fact, kung naalala ninyo sa UAE, it's the importing company that will help you in the registration. So in the same manner, we also need to seek help from our Japanese partner as far as translation of the products is concerned. It can be a disaster. Believe you me, it can be a huge disaster. There was even one time when you were already in a trade fair, kung iba sa inyo nakabutan ng Foodex Japan, this is one of the trade fairs that the Philippines would join every year, except nga nitong 2020, no, you're not able to join. It was actually on site when a buyer discovered that the label of one of our exhibitors were really a huge disaster. Malayo talaga ang naging translation. So that's such a waste of time and money. So may ganyan. So better make sure that we learn from these things and be able to maximize the opportunities of exporting to these countries. Another requirement pag manufactured domestically sa Japan, yung kanina, di ba nakita ninyo, ingredient, country of origin has to be stated. That is the regulation for domestically manufactured products. So this is another example for Vienna sausage, galing sa US ang pork, so these things. Okay, so yan ang sa Japanese market, no? So the next is Philippines to China, another translation ito, di ba? Kaya this is again a different set of characters when it comes to translating Philippine food. Ito naman like Dubai, like UAE. All imported food labels need to be approved by China. With them is the service of inspection and quarantine, quarantine office. So here, the importer must provide, number 1, the paper version of the label in Chinese. Number 2, the digital version of the label. And number 3, a copy of the original label in English. So side by side yan, kailangan i-submit. So which means that napatranslate na. And they will be doing evaluation and checking of your labels, no? So what are the major regulations governing the China food labeling? So 2015 din yung food safety law nila. And then they have an administrative provision for label inspection and supervision of imported and exported prepackaged foods. Because what happens is, when you submit your label for approval, it is stamped with a certain code. And in fact, that is actually filed. May digital ka, pero meron silang sariling filing for that. And then they consult that pag dumating yung shipment mo. Kaya kailangan, pag when you register your label, again, like with that of UAE, all SKUs, lahat ng klase ng packaging, lahat ng, for a single product, for example, lahat ng unit, lahat ng sizes has to be registered. Because they have this inspection requirement, and when they approve of it, then you can ship out your product, yet they will check it against that file. Nasa file nila yun, may code yun. Sa documents mo ngayon, shipping documents, that code has to be put there. Or again, so that they can easily trace the product in the shipment. On labeling standards, similar to the other markets, kasi meron ding mga food processed or processed food process, ito yung mga prepackaged food. But there are those items that have special dietary uses or nutritional claims, no? So they have also formulated different standards for that, which you can see down there, yung GP, GB with different numbers. So meron siyang individual regulations. And for prepackaged, again, we go for product name, ingredients. Yung kanila lang ingredients na less than 2%, inilalamp na lang yan, no? Hindi na yung descending order yan. Net weight, storage condition, country of origin, nutrition information for them, energy, protein, fat, carbohydrate, sodium. Then the importer, distributor, or Chinese agent information to be put in the label, product and expiry date, by the year, month, and day. And then other information that must be indicated na that will impact on their other laws and regulations. So kaya may tatlo pa doon, may dalawa pa doon. Pag may special dietary use yan, pag may nutrition claims yan, they will go to those guidelines. So ito yung example ng sticker. Medyo malabo lang, no? Sample ng sticker that is put on the label na may English, na may of the original label. So ito yung kailangan ipa-approve for the product name, country of origin, no? So this is an example. So they will approve, put a code for that, and then assign this to the product. Meron din kasi tayong export ng bulk. Actually, marami tayong ina-export na bulk products doon, no? Which they repack. So for the bulk products, the name of the food, production date, the shelf life, and then contact of the distributor. Ang food additives naman, if they import a lot of food additives, the same requirement. Sa health food, yung mga healthcare food, medical uses, no, this has to follow yung separate na standard for labeling. Nandun sa listahan na. So it's GB 1348-201. Kailangan hiwalay because of the other document requirements, because you are stating a claim, you are saying that it's for special dietary purpose. So kasama na dito yung infant formula, those for medical uses, no? At saka supplementary food, let's say for those with diabetes, for the elderly, na may nutritional ingredients. So ibang labeling standard na yun. Ano ang kailangang bantayan, no? Pagdating sa mga labels, instructions, there should be no exaggeration. And you cannot make statements like yung mga healthcare, no, disease prevention, pati treatment, hindi pwede. Hindi siya pwedeng may declaration na para siyang gamot or as medicine. And it should be clear, yung mga information on production date and shelf life should be clear and visible, easy to read. And then yung information as in the label must be consistent with what is inside. And then there should be, kung may label warnings, kailangan bantayan yun ng pagdating sa magmamarket ng products. No? Pag may label warnings. So you have here, ang in charge naman sa China is the National Health Commission of the People's Republic of China. So ayan naman yung natin, no? So we have tackled 4 major markets, no, ng ating for export markets. And ito yung mga reliable references. US FDA, Dubai Municipality, Consumer Affairs Agency, and the National Health Commission of the People's Republic of China. Remember that when it comes to food guide, labeling food guide, go to the reliable websites. Don't go to the blogs or any other references. Puntahan mo yung sino yung gumawa ng batas. And make sure that these are the updated references, no? And the next is, of course, cooperate or consult your client or your buyer or your contact in the market of destination. So that is the end of the first topic. Now let us go to the next topic, no? So tingnan mo, parang we are being just, we are being put into excitement na ito pala yung mga markets natin, and these are the labeling requirements. If you are interested, you can prepare for it. But of course, we go down to our own product. kung titingnan mo yung title na to, actually, ang pinaka-message niyan is about market and consumer-driven food product development. Sinabi lang yung lahat ng mga proseso doon. Pero that is about preparing, developing our product with the end in mind. Kaya nga ang goal mo, you have a food product. You develop it, you design it for a specific target market or consumer. And with that goal, you embark into developing it. Now, development takes trials, experiments, test runs, until you are convinced that you have come up with an option, the best option, the better option, the doable one, that will be acceptable to your market. Remember, when you are developing the product, you are not satisfying yourself, even if you are the one developing the product, because you are not the consumer. Kaya ka nga nag-identify ng target market or consumer. Have them in mind until you go to that part where your finished product meets your satisfaction. You can do the mass production, and of course, you can trade it. You can sell it. Sabi nga kasi dito, no? Sabi ni Peter Drucker, ito yung ating guru sa entrepreneurship, and he actually reinvented management. The customer is the foundation of a business and keeps it in existence. Kung wala namang bibili ng product mo, may negosyo ba? So, we drive, business is driven by having people who would buy or who would patronize your product. So therefore, know your target market or consumer. And a lot of those efforts will be in the development. Kaya kung nakita ninyo yung title, if you remember the title, that's really part of product development. Okay. So from the product idea, no, naisip mo when you eat outside, when you go to the supermarket, when you look at the social media, when you read, when you talk to colleagues, to clients, may nakakita ka ngayon na product that can be a solution, no, to a certain gap in the market. So you are that interested. Now you begin with your formulation and development. Then you take time for it, you study that very well, then you go for market testing. Until when the market testing proves to be your product to be viable, then you launch. We see here that ang ating icon is grocery. Kasi kung dito tayo sa Philippine market, once your product reaches the grocery, processed food, kasama na kasi ngayon sa requirements ng Food and Drug Administration, ang supermarkets and groceries should only carry processed food that are registered with FDA, that are licensed, with facilities that are licensed with them. Kaya compliance-based pa rin tayo pagdating dito sa pagde-develop or planning our business, our food business. It's a business tool. The regulations, understanding them, going to the pathway so that we will comply with the requirements of the market is part of the business process. And that has to be included in product development. So uulitin ko ngayon yung nandun sa title, may sinabi about process and product assessment, technology, shelf life, packaging. You begin with knowing the product and then ano ba ang raw material ko dapat, ingredients, ang appropriate packaging. That alone, in the product idea part, will only be validated when you start with the formulation and then develop the product. And then as you begin to see the viability of it, makikita mo na kung ano ang dapat na steps dito. Iba kasi ang steps na mangyayari pamula sa 3 kilo na ginawa mong 20 kilos O let's say pamula sa 5 liters na ginawa mong 50 liters. So now you develop the appropriate steps with that as you scale up. no? And when you develop the steps, papasok diyan yung yung hinihingi ng compliance. The quality and safety control. Lasa, it's got to be good. Safe, hindi dapat ito makasakit. Hindi dapat ito makakos ng injury, ng illness. So, that's why you begin to understand, ay, kailangan pala itong raw material ko. Kailangan pala ang ingredients ko dito kukunin. Ang packaging, kailangan kasi ang shelf life ko 1 year. How can I use this packaging? Now, pagdating sa technology or innovation, appropriate technology yan. It's not because you are preparing an item like a bottled product, you will get a huge equipment. Just because there's technology for that. But there is also one thing called as appropriate technology. That's already an innovation. Match, no? It's got to match what you are doing in your product development. And then when you get to the near to the home stretch, uy, ito na ang product ko. Now you review ano na ang mangyayari sa label. What should I do to the label? Yan na yun, no? And then, since you have a shelf life in mind, yan na malalaro ngayon, no? Babalik ka, titingnan mo kung ano yung ingredients mo, packaging mo, nature niya. Ito ba ang shelf life nito? Ano ang shelf life na desired? So, this is an entire process na it may take time, it may not take a short time, depende sa product that you're developing. So, what does this mean? In this process of product development, we have to produce a safe quality product. We have to understand that these are bound by regulations. And as a food business operator sa Pilipinas, kailangang mag-comply tayo sa requirements ng batas governed by our own Food and Drug Administration. Then we can launch our product. Then supermarkets, groceries can see it. Then other clients can take a look at it and then talk to you if you are willing to take the next step for export. Iyan yung pathway. Okay. So, having said this, so from the product idea to launch, you would see that for a committed food business operator, sometimes hindi mo nalaman nagawa mo na ito lahat. Yun ang beauty of this, especially for those FBOs who have that passion to really create products that are compliant and then make business out of it. Okay. So, with those things, ano ba ang sinasabi natin? Ano bang dapat na tips dito? Pag sinabi mo kasing practical, teka, puro yata science-based ito, technical ito. Anong maganda doon? Knowledge. It's more of knowledge. Welcome the knowledge. Look for more knowledge. Nag-umpisa ka sa tansya-tansya, ang daming nagustuhan ng product mo. But if you want to grow bigger, go to specifics. Suppliers, materials, recipe, cooking, packing, and from tansya-tansya to standardizing. Kaya kahit ang ginagawa mo, 2 boxes, lumaki ngayon yung market mo, naging 10 boxes, ganun pa rin ang naging expectation sa product mo. You are not receiving any complaints about nag-iba yung lasa, nag-iba yung kulay, nag-iba yung texture. Because kasama dito sa effort mo is yung goal mo eh. Okay. Helping you standardize, anong pwede mong gawin? Ito sasabihin natin, this is a practical way of doing it. Go to trainings, maraming available. Food processing, basic food safety, pati FDA requirements meron, how to conduct in-house shelf life study meron, label design, FDA compliant labeling. There are those interventions available. Meaning, do not try to act like you are in an island. Maraming tulong around you. And these trainings are available. Therefore, seek or welcome assistance. So don't think na, ay, ano ko to, formula ko to, recipe ko to sikreto to, ayokong i-share. Gaagawin lang eh. Hindi na ganun ang name of the game. Sabi nga ng FDA, be transparent ka with your ingredients eh. Pag nagtago ka nga ng ingredient, mas may lalo kang violation eh. See, yung pag-grow ng business, it's being able to meet the customer's satisfaction. Kung anong binili niya ngayon, bukas, pag binili niya, at sa isang taon, yun pa rin ang lasa. So, andun yung challenge sa'yo, no? So, yung pagiging welcome sa assistance, para matulungan ka, no? Para maintindihan mo na yung ginagawa mong produkto na yan ay bound by regulations. And the government-sponsored programs or food MSMEs, you have a lot of them. You have a lot of them. So, kung titingnan lang natin, no? Meron diyang Food Connect program ang PTTC. DTI PTTC. This is where you understand, paano ba mag-apply ng FDA? Ano bang dapat kong gawin? Of course, sa una dyan, pag nasa DTI ka, they will encourage you to have a business permit. Siyempre, para naman maging legal ang existence mo. Then there's the Go Negosyo program. Ano siya eh, yung sa Go Negosyo program, it's a holistic approach. I-inculcate sa'yo yung pagiging entrepreneur mo. You are a special person. Yung naiisip mo na mga products na yan, it may be those that are not being thought of by others. That will drive you, no? Para i-push mo yung sarili mo to finally come up with a compliant product. There are food safety lecture, workshop series. Meron ding sa PTTC, no? There are labeling development programs in the DTI regions and also DOST. In fact, kung gusto nyo magtanong ng mga reliable suppliers ng packaging, I do always recommend DOST Packaging Technology Division. Laging updated yan ng mga listahan ng appropriate packaging. Especially when it comes to packaging that will help extend the shelf life of your product. So yeah, no? So remember that as a food business operator, you have the primary responsibility to ensure that your product is safe and of good quality. Kahit sabihin natin, minsan nga iba dyan, they will tell, wala naman ng FDA, walang inspection. No. You have that primary responsibility. FBO ka eh, food business operator. Actually, yung FBO term ng FDA yan eh. Primary responsibility mo. Look out ka. Sarili mong look out ka. Okay? So by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So yan ang sabi naman ng famous na dating presidente sa ano. Okay. So now that is the end of topic 2. Okay. So, dito na tayo ngayon. Ito na, no? Parang baliktad, ano? Doon tayo sa, yung malayo, export market. That's a good thing. It gets us excited. Pero ito ngayon, para sa atin, how do we do this? Okay. So, ang topic natin is about the FDA license to operate. No? Then, meron tayong halal food certification program for Muslim market. And then, yung international food safety standard certification for multinational clients. Multinational clients, marami yan tayo sa Pilipinas na. And plus also conglomerates, no? Ano yan eh, they look for suppliers that have food safety standard certification. So, sa atin sa Pilipinas, for a food business operator, you need to seek the license to operate, secure the license to operate, which allows you to legally import, manufacture, sell, or distribute health products under the FDA guidelines, regulations. Ang health products is would govern food, drug, or cosmetic. Then the certificate of product registration, ito naman yung sa product mo. It is the FDA seal of official approval. Such product ay pumasa sa FDA requirements at na-meet mo rin yung FDA standards of safety and quality. So meron tayong standards of safety and quality. Meron din tayong standards of identity ng mga products natin. In fact, yan, yung legal basis na yan, it's our ticket towards explaining our products when we go to the export market. Okay. So anong magiging reference natin pagdating sa LTO? May circular dyan, 2016-004. And then you have to do it via the FDA portal, so electronic application. This is subject to renewal. So yung first 2 years and then after that 5 years, no? Then, yung certificate of product registration, there is also another administrative order to help us out in registering our product. We have to follow the labeling regulations. And then again, we go to the portal, fda.gov.ph, to apply online, and this is subject to renewal. So step 1, step 2, meaning hindi ka pwede magpa-register ng product mo hanggat wala kang lisensya. Okay? Malinaw yan, no? Anong requirements, anong documents? Pagdating sa license to operate, ang unang tinitingnan ng FDA dito is kung if this good manufacturing practices is in place. Yan pa lang, ang dami na tayong mga assisted, mga seminars on GMP, no? DTI region, dito sa sa other DTI bureaus like PTTC, no? So GMP yan. Ano pang required? Product analysis. Kasi kailangan kung ano yung products na pinoproduce mo diyan sa planta mo, and they will inspect. Then once you get the license, then you apply for the certificate of product registration. Ano naman kailangan diyan? Yung you have to show the test results, upload, no? Pati yung nutritional testing, show the label and photos. So if you note sa step 2, walang sample na kailangan. Uploading lang ng photos ng product mo. Ang tanging nangangailangan ng samples for step 2 are those food supplements. Okay? So, ito yung sample ng labeling guide natin. Ang kailangan dyan ay fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, no? Sodium, total carbohydrates, fiber, sugar, and protein. So ito yung pinaka-main guide, no, when it comes to nutrition, labeling, and testing. Ngayon, when you get licensed, what's next? Ma-open ka na sa other opportunities niyan when you get license and certificate. First is you would have to understand what HACCP is all about. Kasi kung titingnan mo yung pathway ng HACCP, pwede kang magpunta sa International Food Safety Standards. You can also go to halal. Kita mo yan? Or you can also look at the requirements of the US market and take a look at HARPC. So individually, ano ba yan? So HACCP is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. Nasa Food Safety Act of 2013 natin yan, wherein when we develop our food safety system in our facility, we are encouraged to try to go for a HACCP-based approach. Later on, when this gets to be updated, because alam mo naman, in the market, no, HACCP certifications are being asked mostly by our clients. The Philippine FBOs will soon be encouraged to be certified with HACCP. So itong HACCP na to is looking at having our food produced safely. Kasi ito yung proseso na inaalam natin kung ano yung pwedeng makakos ng pagkasira ng pagkain natin at pwede siyang mag-lead to illness ng kakain. So tinuturuan tayo dito, kaya nga hazards. Ano yung hazards? Ano yung mga yan? So may tatlo na focus dito, physical, chemical, and microbiological. So that is being understood. Depende yan sa product. Kaya itong HACCP nga is product specific. Now, kung sakali man may inquiry ka, no, for other markets, ito yung mga food safety management systems na acceptable to various markets. So, one is ISO 22000:2018 by the International Standards Organization. The other is the Food Safety System Certification or FSSC 22000. And the next is BRC or the British Retail Consortium. Isa pa dito, SQF, Safe Quality Food. So do you notice talagang food safety is a primary concern, primary factor for business to move, for your products to be acceptable to not just in the Philippines but to other markets as well. So kung naka-license na tayo, may CPR, and then we are open to getting to know HACCP until we move to the other, then this is the pathway. Ito ang pathway natin. Halal, ang halal certification ngayon, of course, sabi nga dito is halal means permissible. But when you hear from our halal trainers, the emphasis is having a HACCP-aligned company. Because halal certification is also leveraged on having a quality assurance that makes the food safe for consumption. Kaya ang halal market, ang halal food, hindi na lang yung nako-confine sa Muslim population, although sa Muslim pa lang, it's about more than 1.3 trillion market, malaking market. But because halal certification, the logo already means that it's safe for consumption, hindi ang bumibili niyan, hindi lang mga Muslims, kaya lumalaki lalo ang market. So ayan ang sa halal certification. This one, the new one that has been developed by the US FDA is taking off from HACCP. It is taking off from HACCP. And when you are already familiar with how the HACCP has to be implemented in your facility, sandali na lang yan. Made-develop mo na yung food safety plan. Ang laki talaga ng factor ng may HACCP background ka. Ngayon, itong HARP-C na to is the major guideline on PCHF, Preventive Controls for Human Food, for compliance ng FBOs, both domestic and foreign. See, yan ang mga pathway natin when it comes to the international standards, and these are your references now for FDA, Philippines, fda.gov, for the international, starting with Codex HACCP, FAO, and Codex Alimentarius General Principles of Food Hygiene 2020, kahit nga ang Codex, nag-update na rin. See? So, anong kailangan natin ditong learnings natin, ano? Dynamic ang food safety guidelines. As dynamic as how we develop or, upgrade our products. So, as an FBO, our responsibility as we move our business, and in order for us to be more successful, let's think about these requirements for food. So, thank you so much. I give you the grace.
All right. Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. No? Mahaba siya pero talaga namang siksik. Kasing siksik ng mga food na nandun sa lata. Ayan. So now, we're open to questions. So just type in your questions in the Q&A box. Pero first, may some comment, ma'am, from Noel ko. Thank you very much daw. Your talk is very informative and quite easy to understand. Yan,
Thank
kudos.
you, Noel.
And then from Annie, how are nutrition facts validated daw po?
Validated nutrition
Yes.
facts.
Yes.
Of course, it has to be undergo testing. Your product has to be submitted to an accredited laboratory for testing. Now, yung nutrition component nun, it needs to be evaluated also kasi there are products na kailangan talaga complete nutrition testing. Pero let's say our product is vinegar. So, may mga nutrients talaga yan na, alam mo yun, by science, hindi mo na kailangan i-analyze kasi wala naman doon. So, that's why we need that to be evaluated also by competent authority. Then, punta ka na sa nutrition testing.
Alright. Yung next is from someone, anonymous. Can you recommend companies daw that can help translate labels?
Oh, I just cannot do it here. Because what we normally do, that before I used to get a Japanese translation company to help us out in labeling. But as again, best practice talaga. Because we have encountered that situation na, alam mo, kung may iba pang word ang disaster, doon sa nangyari sa amin sa isang show. If there's another, talagang ganon, no? So, let us consult our buyer. Because they will definitely help us in correct translation. After all, you are partners in the business.
Right. So for that, consult your buyer. Ayan. Consult your buyer.
Exactly.
All right. Next from Carol, will Phil Halal certificate be accepted in UAE?
What?
Will the Philippine Halal certificate be accepted in UAE?
Okay. We still have that ongoing, no? And this is still an ongoing concern because let me see, about 2 years ago, Dubai municipality has dispatched an announcement. They have announced that they halal certifying bodies must be accredited with them. So it is still, actually this is a G2G concern, government to government. And then, once we hear from the Philippine Accreditation Bureau, sa atin yun, no? KAB, kung ano yung na-accredit na nila to be recommended to the Dubai, then we can use those certifying bodies and get ourselves halal certified through them. This is just a concern that needs to be confirmed 100%. So that's why I may have those information with me, but it is best to consult, no? Dahil Philippine Accreditation Bureau naman, PAB, no? Nag-accredit ng certifying bodies dito sa atin, the best person to consult will be them. Ano na ba ang nangyayari dito? Ano ang update dito?
Ayun. So go to the specific organization. Ayan. Alright. And still from Carol, no, in the US, there's no need to indicate the manufacturer's name, but needed for UAE. Tama po ba yun?
Okay, I might just have not, parang I did not include, no? But kasama ang manufacturer's name doon, Carol, sa US. Kasama siya. Kasama siya. Requirement
So,
talaga yan. Oo. Kaya nga nilagay ko yung website ng US FDA for you to review yourself. Kasi alam mo, itong information na to, talagang babalik ka sa website eh. Para lang to confirm. We do not want to have non-compliant labels. Ayaw natin yun na darating doon non-compliant. Sa US, masasama ka sa Oasis. Ayaw mo no, kasama ka doon sa mga because of labeling. So, yung research, but kasama, Carol, ang manufacturers sa label.
Alright. Kasama daw. Okay. And go to the reputable websites. Ayan. Not on the blogs. Ayan.
Oo, nakalagay. Tama ka. Ano yun eh. And of course, nakalagay dun product of the Philippines. So, sa format, manufactured by and then product of the Philippines. Kaya nga kahit yung contact number, or normally wala naman tayong contact number normally. Talagang yung ano mo lang, address of the manufacturer and then product of the Philippines.
Alright. Ito naman po from Leo. For Japan labeling, what nutrition facts guidelines will be followed to be placed on the label? Are percent daily values and percent RENI acceptable to them?
Ay, ang RENI dito lang sa atin sa Pilipinas. Ang percent RENI dito lang sa atin sa Pilipinas. Kaya, I have put in one of my slides yung mga nutrition labeling, yung mga components. So, kasama dun ang protein, ang carbohydrates, may sodium. Ang sodium nga, kung ano pa yung salt equivalent, no? Kasama yung mga yon. About the daily value, ang daily value kasi na yan, dito rin sa Pilipinas yan eh. So yung nutritional content lang ang ilalagay mo doon. And then have that submitted to your Japanese importer. And then for any, kasi ang pati translation, they will have to do that. And then kung marirecall niyo yung labeling na pinakita ko, na nakalagay lang yung content ng nutrient. Yung DB, depende yan sa market. Sa atin, may sarili tayong DB, yung RENI sa atin yun. No, requirement natin dito sa Pilipinas yun, sa labeling natin.
Alright. Still from Leo, where can we get labeling guidance naman daw on non-food like cosmetic products like soaps, massage oil?
Is that for the Japanese market? Leo?
Ano, iba na po. Iba naman. Ano lang, another question. Where can we get labeling guidance daw on non-food naman, like cosmetic products, soaps, massage oils, yan.
Cosmetic products including HUS, household and urban household chemicals. Kasi ang cosmetics under health products yan, so therefore na sa FDA website.
FDA.
Sa FDA website natin, Philippine FDA, go to the regulations for cosmetics. Ang kaibahan lang sa food regulations, ang cosmetics guidelines under the Philippine FDA is harmonized with the ASEAN guidelines. Makikita mo doon. In fact, yung use ng cosmetic mo, may claim ka ba? For example, for a certain ingredient, for a certain product, like shampoo, ito lang ang pwede mong sabihin na, ano nga ba yun? Anti-dandruff, yung mga ganun. May mga ganun, no? Meron silang mga qualifying descriptions na acceptable among ASEAN. So you'd better get into the FDA website and check the cosmetic guidelines. But if you can give me the email dito, pwede kong email sa'yo, Leo. Meron akong a few references. Galing sa FDA para mabilis na, no? I-review mo. You send me
Alright.
the email. You send me your email address, Leo.
O, Leo, kung nasaan ka man, ayan.
Ayan,
Send
i-send mo
your
dito.
email at ayan
Sandali,
na.
I will copy
Ayan.
lang kasi nawawala ito eh. So,
Oh,
can I have your full name, Leo? Sulat, ayun, Leo.
Leo Geniston.
Geniston, ano?
Yan,
Geniston.
lgeniston@gmail.com.
O sige, email ko sa'yo, Leo, ha?
Oh, pati
Okay.
may isa pa, si simply.mea@yahoo.com. Ayan, for cosmetics din.
Simply.mea.
Simply.mea,
Siguro brand mo yan, Leo. Ano?
MEAH.
Brand ni Leo yan, ano?
MEAH.
Simply.
Ayan. .mea. MEAH.
At
Ayan.
Yahoo.
Yahoo.com.
Sige, Leo. Ay, mapadala ko sa'yo.
Sige, ito naman.
Ani, hello. May nag-message na sa akin.
Ayan, alright.
Okay. O, si
Tapos,
Shiba. Okay.
ayan.
Sorry,
Okay lang po, okay lang po.
Nag-message sila kasi. Ayan, Okay.
Yan, naging ano na to, chat, Facebook Messenger.
Oo nga.
Marami pang questions, pero we cannot, accommodate all. We'll try our best, pero ito yung mga iba pa. Can we sell, from Michelle Chua, can we sell products already with LTO, but without CPR yet?
Well, you better be consult. May iba kasi groceries do accept it, no? Ngayon, anong pwede natin gawin? Show a product analysis kung ang CPR ninyo is in process. Alam mo, the best thing is process the CPR. What keeps you from registering kung may LTO ka na? The next
Ma'am,
thing
what is LTO and what is CPR? Baka yung iba hindi nila alam.
Ulitin natin, baka yung LTO, sabihin nyo, land transportation. Hindi yun, mali yun. Hindi natin pinag-uusapan yan ngayon. LTO is the FDA license to operate.
License to operate po yan.
Planta mo. Lisensya of the establishment. Kailangan ma-license muna yung establishment mo sa FDA. Sabihin, ay, dito pala nakalocate yung planta ni Grace. Ito pala. Ang ginagawa pala ni Grace ay tea, ginger tea. Kaya alam ng FDA yon. Ngayon, dahil may license ka na, magpunta ka na sa CPR, mag-i-reg mo na agad. Kasi ang hinihingi ng online application for Certificate of Product Registration, your LTO number.
Correct.
Yung unang application mo ng license to operate, 2 years validity yan. Well, do it. Pa-register ka na.
Correct. So, yun ang LTO po, license to operate.
Yeah, kasi pag nagpunta ka sa supermarket, sa grocery, they may consider yung LTO. Wow, okay yun. No? Pero syempre, kapag para sa'yo naman, para wider opportunities, go for the CPR. May LTO ka na eh.
Alright. Ito naman from Joseph Mabatit in June Arca. Saan po pwedeng magpa-test ng product for shelf life? Student budget lang po.
Sorry walang student budget ang shelf life testing. Pero, you can do it in-house. Okay, so since ang question mo, saan nagpapatest outside, the DOST Packaging Technology Division conducts accelerated shelf life testing. So you have to visit them, discuss with them the type of product that you have, and then discuss kung ano yung magiging parameters para magawa yung experimental shelf life testing for you. At least yung kompleto na yan pag lumabas.
Ito, a bit related, I think. Does FDA, from Anonymous, does FDA have exceptions, privileges, or assistance for those under BMBE or micro businesses, especially startups who have limited financial resources and might not have enough budget for compliances right away?
Budget for compliance. Actually,
wala pang budget, so FDA daw ba have assistance or exceptions for those under BMBE? Or is this micro businesses?
Wala akong alam. Pero yung BMBE is supposed to assist you in capability building, di ba? Kung si BMBE mo has assisted you in your facility, physical facility, malaking factor na yun para maumpisahan mo yung pag-comply sa license to operate. Kasi yung una gusto nila makita yung lugar mo Talaga bang manufacturer ito? Yan ang importance ng LTO You are a legit manufacturer. So if the BMBE grant can help you with that, umpisa na yun. As I said, di ba, may iba pang mga assistance. For example, Food Connect. May planta ka na, may facility ka na. Then, ang ano mo na lang, paano ko gagawin yung FDA papeles, compliance, ano ba ito? So, government already has a program for that, like PTTC's Food Connect program na tied up with FDA Academy. See, partnership ito with FDA Academy. Now, how can you access that? DTI regional offices may have projects that's partnering with, that has Food Connect projects. So, why not approach your nearest DTI office, negosyo center? No? Yan ang sinasabi ko yan yung mga tips na kailangan mong malaman. Para you don't do things on your own. Ganon. And they will really welcome you. Basta pag nakita nilang, you have this product, you really want to sell, naku, ang tulong na ibibigay sa'yo, magugulat ka.
So, ano po, no? Siguro, yung advice niya is best to go to your nearest DTI office, no? Or regional office na who can help you. Ayan, no? Kaya mga programa to ng ating gobyerno na dapat ay ina-access nyo. Ayan. And siguro last question, ma'am, kasi everyone is interested about there's too much information, important information sa slides ninyo. Ayan, no? Lahat gusto nilang para kasi yung mga requirements po yun. How can they access po kaya yan? Or the other question is, pwede daw po ba makuha ang email nyo for consultation? Ayan. Ano pong masasabi nyo dyan?
Alam mo, ang suggestion ko dyan, dahil di ba nasabi ko nga na pagdating sa grassroots intervention, meron tayong Food Connect, which is partnered with FDA Academy. Food Connect is being managed by the Philippine Trade Training Center, kaya ito meron akong itong background. No? I'm also at PTTC right now, Philippine Trade Training Center, and contact, go to the website ng PTTC. Nako, you will see a lot of information there relevant sa requirements nyo. Tapos sasabihin na lang ng mga coordinators diyan kung sa food ito, agad, mag-gravitate kami doon. Yung aming grupo sa food safety program. Okay. But there are some here who know me already, kaya hello sa inyo.
Yan, hello sa mga kakilala ni Ma'am Rosemarie. Ayan.
Hello, thank you for attending.
So, yung advice, visit the website, no? And of Philippine Training Center and Tinker, no? Lahat ng mga tabs doon, check nyo kung saan ba pwede. And I'm sure, sabi nga ni Ma'am Rosemarie, yan, no? They'll be happy to help. Yan. And yung Food Connect, tama ba, Ma'am?
Food Connect. At saka don't think na lahat ito ay, ang maganda talaga nakatied in ka sa mga DTI projects because they are so generous in helping MSMEs towards alignment. Talagang may mga guidance pa yan, may coaching pa yan. So, we do coach, no? Basta't may mga DTI regions na sa projects namin dito sa PTTC.
Ayan. So, again, your friendly DTI regional office, DTI neighbor. Ayan. Babalik pa rin sa DTI. Ayan. So, yun po, no? Unfortunately, this wraps up our Q&A. And again, Miss Kwan, thank you very much po. At marami kaming natutunan. Ako din, no? Kahit I'm not into the food processing business. Ayan. Ang dami ko pong natutunan. So, once again, salamat po. And hope to see you soon again for your knowledge and information. Thank you po.
Bye-bye sa inyong lahat. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Bye.
All right. So again, no, thank you kay Miss Rosemarie Kwan, and in a while we will be spinning again, no, ang ating spin a wheel, and bubunot tayo sino ang magiging lucky winner of our special gift box na ibinigay ng ating mga generous exhibitors from Coco Plus Aquarium Development Corporation, Hineleban Foundation Incorporated, and Everything Green PH for the proudly Philippine-made tokens in our gift box. Ayan, nakikita nyo sa inyong screen. Alright, yan ang makukuha ninyo. Kahit box pa lang, yung basket pa lang, napakaganda na. No? Ayan, so all proudly Philippine-made. Diba? So as long as you are here, all right, in the Zoom meeting na ito or webinar, qualified po kayo for our spin a wheel later. Okay? Just some few announcements, alright? Yung mga nagtatanong about kung saan ba makikita yung mga recording earlier kasi hindi nakagising, ayan, hindi nakapasok agad. So the webinar recorded videos are available on demand. Ayan, on demand from the Virtual National Trade Fair Facebook page. Sa inyo pong Facebook, i-search nyo lang, type Virtual National Trade Fair, makikita nyo po doon ang mga webinar recorded videos that you can access on demand. Alright. To visit naman the virtual booth, no? Bisitahin natin yung ating mga virtual, ano bang mga produkto, magagandang produkto na nandyan, alright? Just go to, you can look on your screen, alright? Go to www.virtualnationaltradefair.dti.gov.ph. And pangalawa, you have to register to get yung free access pass. Free po ito. Free ang access pass, alright? And then you can browse, you visit the virtual booth, ayan, para naman suportahan natin ang ating local entrepreneurs and baka meron pa kayong makitang produkto and gusto ninyong bilhin. Alright?